Hey YouTube, yes, I am back. It is Omar on the scene, making my first video in a long time, mostly due to summer break and just having a busy life lately. But yes, I am back and I am bringing you a first of many videos today and hopefully a lot of videos in the near future. But yeah, this is my college football wrap up for week 3 of the college football season. Of course, this type of video is what made this channel semi-popular back in the day. But here we go. We'll start with the top 25 scores, and of course this is done by ranking, and these are the rankings at during week 3, not now. Week 3, and it's done by ranking. So number 1 Alabama killed Arkansas on the road 52-0. Number 2 USC upset on the road by number 21 Stanford 21-14. Number 3, LSU defends home turf against Idaho, 63-14. Number 4, Oregon defends home turf against Tennessee Tech with a very similar score, 63-14, same score. Number 5, Florida State defends home turf against Wake Forest, 52-0. Number 7, Georgia wins at home against Florida Atlantic, 56-20. Number 8, South Carolina defeats UAB at home 49-6. Number 9 West Virginia to kill James Madison 42-12. Number 20 Notre Dame goes on the road and beats number 10 Michigan State 20-3. Number 11 Clemson beats Furman 41-7. Number 12 Ole Miss barely holds off Cal 35-28. Number 13 Virginia Tech upset on the road at Pittsburgh 35-17. Number 14 Texas, they would win on the road at Ole Miss 66-31. Number 15 Kansas State would beat North Texas 35-21. Number 16 TCU would win on the road against Kansas 20-6. Number 17 Michigan beats UMass 63-13. Number 18 Florida beat number 23 Tennessee 37-20. Number 19 Louisville barely hangs on, almost got come back on by North Carolina, but they win 39-34. Number 20 UCLA wins against Houston 37-6. Number 24 Arizona was able to beat South Carolina State 56-0, and number 25 BYU loses I forget what they call it, but they lose to Utah. It was actually a crazy game, but yeah, Utah wins it 24-21. So let's talk about what stands out in these. Whoa, it's already been 3 minutes. What stands out in these games? Obviously, the ranked versus ranked games. But let's just get into the number 1 segment, which is what we learned this week. And the first thing we learned, and listen closely now, we did not learn that Stanford is a legitimate title contender. We did not learn that Stanford is the real deal. I mean, they're the real deal, but we did not learn that. What I really took from that USC Stanford game is that USC is flawed. That game showed more that USC is flawed. That was more apparent in the game than Stanford's this real deal championship contender. I mean, let's just talk about Matt Barkley for one. The guy obviously had a terrible game. In fact, Lane Kiffin, the head coach of USC, publicly blamed the loss on Matt Barkley. I mean, there seems to be some turmoil, and he had a bad game, no touchdowns, 2 picks, and I blame it on the pressure. I mean, it seems like Matt Barkley can't handle the pressure, and when he's getting pressured in a game consistently, all of a sudden he's not the same quarterback. So we're going to have to see how that goes later in the season in some other big games, Oregon and all those teams. So yeah, USC is flawed. The second thing we learned is Florida is going to compete in the SEC East and maybe even compete for the SEC title. And I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. I have my trusty Phil Steele magazine, and he says that Florida is going to win the SEC East. I think it is, I think it's the East. And you know what? I have to agree at this point. I mean, what they've shown, they played a tough Tennessee team. Obviously, they played in a hostile environment. And, it was a close game for a while, but they just destroyed in the second half. They won the second half 27-6, and they really showed me something. And I think they can go somewhere this year. Next, on what we learned, the third thing we learned, Arkansas and Alabama. What can you say? Let's start with Alabama. Now, of course, Arkansas is missing what's his name? I can't think of their quarterback's name right now, but they're missing him, and he's a big piece. But Arkansas is still a pretty good team. I mean, they're not showing it. They've lost 2 straight. They got lost to UL Monroe, and they're far out of the rankings. But they're a pretty good team. Alabama really showed me what kind of dominant team they are. I mean, they are just dominating early in the season. They dominated Michigan. I don't know who they played the next week, but it doesn't really matter. At this point, I don't know how you could go against Alabama as in the SEC championship game at least, if not in the national championship game, and winning it again for the 2nd straight year. And the last thing I learned are West Virginia and Geno Smith are, well, not both of them, but West Virginia is a legitimate national title contender. Maybe you're not with me on that one, but I have to say it's true because they come out 3-0. They're number 9, so they're right in the middle there. It's going to take some climbing, but they can get there. And Geno Smith, now that is a quarterback. I mean, he had a beastly day. But we'll get to that. And we'll get to it right now, matter of fact, because next up, cat's coming. But next up is the top 5 my Heisman candidates. So number 5 now, there might be some surprises on here, by the way. Number 5, Matt Barkley. Fell down my list. What can you say? I mean, he looked so great against Hawaii and Syracuse, but in his first serious test this year against Stanford, did not look like Heisman candidate, did not look like a first overall draft pick, and maybe, I tend to think that he shouldn't be the first overall draft pick. In fact, I think that spot should go to Geno Smith, but we'll see. So number 4, this is my surprise. Even Jason was a little surprised. But I'm going to say number 4, my Heisman candidate right now, and maybe you don't believe me, you're not with me, Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback of Louisville. Obviously under the radar, but the fact of the matter is that Louisville's 3-0, and this guy is having a pretty good year. I mean, maybe you look at his touchdowns. He only has 5 touchdowns, and you say, what the hell is that? Well, guess what? He's thrown 80-something passes this year, and he's completed 81% of those. Does not have an interception and has plenty of yards. So this guy is a legitimate Heisman candidate as long as Louisville keeps doing well. And he keeps completing that many passes. Oh, boy. So number 3 on my list, D'Anthony Thomas, the running back out of Oregon. What can you say? He's not really the number 1 back. Kenyon Barner is, but this guy, he can run. He gets rushing yards. He gets receiving yards. He's a punt returner. I mean, he gets all these all-purpose yards, and that's always something that the Heisman voters like to see. So number 2, very similar to D'Anthony Thomas, Jonathan Franklin, running back out of UCLA, a little bit high, but he's had a good season so far. UCLA's 3-0, and he's catching passes and he's rushing it, and he had 110 rushing yards and 58 receiving yards in their last game, albeit against Houston, but still. I mean, that shows what kind of dual threat back he can be. And number 1, of course, Geno Smith. This guy is on absolute fire. 34 of 39, 411 yards and 5 touchdowns this week. Of course, it was against a bad team, but he has shown me something. I am really jumping on the Geno Smith bandwagon since the season started because he's been absolutely amazing this year. 9 touchdowns, no picks, has completed 88% of his passes. I mean, what more is there to say? He has not been sacked. Has not been sacked, has not thrown a pick. I mean, what more can you ask at this point? And did I mention he runs the ball too? And he's only played 2 games with those 9 touchdowns and 734 yards. But yeah, that's my Heisman watch, and basically that will wrap up this video. I guess I'll wrap it up by saying that there will be more videos coming out as soon as this one uploads. I'm going to have some baseball, some NFL, some maybe just general news. Escobar, I'm not sure if you heard about that. But yeah, we'll get there. And I will see you guys